the seventh generation, Maharaja Karna Keertiya. In the Devlok, God's world, under the supervision of Dharmaraj, a person's yoni, species of life, is determined according to his personal thoughts and actions. The person whose life breath leaves the body through Surya-Swar, right breath, and who has Sattvik noble nature dominating him, is included in the class of gods and goes to heaven or comes down to have an incarnation in the world of the amelioration of humanity. The souls living through the Chandraswar, left breath, do not have the strength and brilliance possessed by those living through Suryaswar. This deep secret is known only to sages, saints, siddhs, people with supernatural powers, and yogis. The truth is that our earth is the touchstone of the will and unswerving determination, like Maharaja Bhagirath. The apostle of truth, Maharaja Harishchandra, the embodiment of strength and sacrifice, the great Rishi Dadichi, Maryada Purushottam Ram, Murli Manohar Bhagwan Shri Krishna, the greatest benevolent king Karna, Bhakt king Mordhvaj, the child Bhakts Dhruv and Prahlad, the sages Valmiki, Kabir and Raidas, the incarnation of bravery, Bajrangbali, Hanuman, Arjun, Bhim and Bhishma Pitama, were such souls that with their lives and action on this earth, they had established the superiority of man over even the gods. Along with great men, the noble women of this earth also proved by their satitva, faithfulness to husband, and the principles of life that the Mrityulok, this perishable world, is a mint where coins worth the heavens are molded. Sati Damayanti, Mahasati Anusuya, the ideal faithful Sita, Sati Savitri, and other noble women even defeated gods by their determinations. These women are worshipped even to this day. Maharaja Karna Keertiya, the king of the capital of capital city Bhojkar, had all these qualities which a capable ruler, astute politician, benevolent and just administrator, a worshipper of truth should have. Besides all these royal qualities, he had a special practice of going for a month and a quarter on holiday from the state work, leaving everything in the hands of his commander-in-chief. This period of renunciation and tapasya was spent by him on the banks of the Mother Ganga in the dense forest. This renunciation period was unbroken and therefore its spiritual effect changed the atmosphere of the city and entire kingdom. Whenever King Karna Keertiya went into trance, he did not feel at the least disturbed, even if he had to bear all sorts of physical stresses, or even if any sort of misfortunes came anywhere. Before he rose from his trance posture, his queen herself gathered fruits and vegetables from the forest and prepared his breakfast. During this period of renunciation, the king used to forego all sort of delicious and vigor providing dry fruits. His wife was also a great pativrata, faithful to the husband, and a resolute person. The couple was the type who attained Vaikunt immortality on the basis of their tapasya, spiritual self-mortifications. Thousands of pranam, salutations to them. Their lives are not for royal enjoyment and sensual satisfactions. Such devis, godly women, do not give birth to lions or wolves, but to noble persons with the highest of all round talents and spiritual powers. Once in the month of Kwar, Ashwin or October nearly, King Karna Keertiya was sitting still in his trance posture, right in the midst of dense, unpenetrable forests on the bank of the Mother Ganga. The sky was overcast with dark and thick clouds. The rainy season on its last legs happened to be at its zenith. Maharani Awadh had built a hut of straw quite near to her husband's place for looking after him. She lived there till the conclusion of her husband's austerity trance. As destiny would have it, one night there was an explosive thunder which rent the sky and which, severing the trees and rocks, struck fearfully at the place. Soon it began to rain cats and dogs. The queen was very much perturbed for the safety of the king. But how could she awaken him? She knew that whatever might happen, the king was not going to relinquish his trance and get up. In a while, the river Ganga began to rise in a threatening flood. Presently, it went over the banks and rushed on all sides. The queen was astounded to see the horrible demolition caused by the lightning and the lashing rains into the trees. She had never seen such a terrible storm in her whole entire life. The entire vegetation was swinging and touching the ground in a prostrate position. She left her cottage and ran with all her might towards the site of her husband's tapasya. But when she reached near it, she saw a sight that was so unbelievable. There was a water rush everywhere, the waves surging higher and higher every moment, but the place of the king's trance was like an island, dry and firm ground. The Rajguru, royal priest, Mahayogeshwaranand, was standing mute close by, with his hand raised over the head of his disciple, King Karna Keertiya. There was devastation all around. The rolling of the current, the shattering of the tumultuous waves, and the lashing of the lightning created an atmosphere of veritable terror. But all the onslaught of the flood struck near the king's platform and diverted itself right and left as if in humble salutation to the spiritual activity at present at its climax. The queen fell most respectfully at the feet of Gurudev Mahayogeshwaranandji and spoke in a very humble voice, "Countless homage to your Leela spiritual play, O Gurudev. Your power is unlimited. For the sake of protecting the life of my husband, you have diverted the flood. Thereby, you have proved that whosoever is protected by his Guru, even the most powerful and devastating storms and floods cannot cause any harm to him. I will be grateful to you all my life for this kindness so gracefully blessed on us." Maharaj Yogeshwaranand raised his eyebrows and saw the queen. Affectionately, he replied, "O my daughter, no asset is dearer to a guru than his disciple. I am responsible for developing this feeling of renunciation and aloofness in your husband. Tell me who else has to bear the burden of looking after his security? Who else had the power to provide a wall of protection around him to direct the flood and the storm? Actually, I have left my own samadhi to come to his rescue." "Why have you done so, Gurudev?" asked the queen in a speech struck with wonder. "O my daughter Awadh, when our Lord himself can speak a lie for his bhakt, then I cannot break my own samadhi for the sake of my disciple. Remember, O Rani, how Lord Krishna has not regarded even lie, deceit, camouflage a crime when used as a political maneuver for a good purpose. O Gurudev, why did Mother Ganga show this anger during the period of his tapasya? What sin has been committed by us, O Lord?" When this question was put by the Maharani to Gurudev Mahayogeshwaranand, he kept silent for a moment. Then he began to investigate mentally the reason of this anger with the help of his yogic powers. Then he spoke calmly, "My daughter Awadh, you do not know, but right since the first king Rukmi of the capital Kundanpuri founded the new city of Bhojkar to this day, no yajna has been performed in this city, whereas the Puranic tradition is that whenever a person performs some new function, he has to first organize a yajna havan satsang, religious rites, anushtan, performance, compulsorily. Establishment of a new kingdom by a king was a colossal undertaking. On the occasion of this setup, a yajna on a very large scale was called for. In the absence of such a rite, there was destined to be some scourge or other. Still, it was only because of the virtuous actions of King Karna Keertiya and his ancestors that much loss has not been incurred in the natural upheaval. To say the truth, my daughter, this is not the rage of Mother Ganga but manifestation by the nature to guide you regarding the divine will. Unless the yajna anushtan or a new undertaking is performed, it remains impure. It has been the divine ordained through this testing ordeal or to forewarn the king for a big yajna. Hearing these words from Mahaguru Yogeshwaranand, the king and queen fell at his feet and begged for the forgiven for this lapse. Begged to be forgiven for this lapse. The king resolved, with an oath and witness of Mother Ganga at the feet of Gurudev, that he would perform this Mahayagya at the earliest. The king, after finishing of his annual period of tapasya, entered his capital and proclaimed the performance of the Mahayagya. The whole city danced with joy at this news and began to bustle with enthusiasm and preparation. The neighboring states and kings of distant lands were also sent invitations to join this holy endeavor. There was a sanitary campaign in the entire kingdom of Bhojkar. Sandalwood in large quantities was ordered from the hills. A big Havan Kund, pit for sacrificial fire, was built in the royal palace, where in the vast compound asanas, seats for the Raja Maharajas were constructed. Special asanas were set up for the saints, seers, priests and yogis. Around the Havan Kund, in the center, a high seat was constructed for the family priest Mahayogeshwaranandji. Thus all the preparations for the Mahayagya were completed. But the Vedas say Ishwar Ichha Baliyasi, that is, the will of God is all powerful. Who can know the time, hours, minute or second of his destiny? Right at the time fixed for starting of the Mahayagya, a terrible fire broke out in several villages of the outskirts of the kingdom of Maharaja Karna Keertiya. The field, granaries, houses and huts of the farmers and laborers began to burn in raging fire. People began to howl and cry for help. A group of saints came up to inform the king about this upheaval. O king, there is wildfire raging in your kingdom. The people are very much perplexed. They cannot fight against it fierce onslaught. The fire is spreading from one village to another, from one jungle to another. If the property, fields and crops of the farmers burnt, from whom would they get their food? We were busy in the bhajan kirtan, chanting of prayers of God in the jungles on the banks of Ganga. But hearing of this calamity, we could not stay and have to come. So you should at once rush with all your army at top speed to fight the ravages of this huge fire. O king, do not delay, otherwise you will be guilty of a great crime. If a king does not come to the rescue of his people, even in such an eventuality, then He is not even worthy to be called a king, whereas you are so well known for your benevolence and the protection of the poor. You have never ignored the needs of any person, nay, even any bird or beast in distress in your kingdom. Come on, accompany us at once. The king was in a great dilemma. On one side was the great undertaking of a big Anushtan of a Mahayagya, and on the others the ravaging disaster that had fallen like a bolt from the blue on his subjects. At last, he consulted Sadguru Mahayogeshwaranandaji and chanting his name started with all speed towards the location of the fire ravaged country. Really, the fire had enveloped dozens of villages. The farmers, laborers, children, old people, and youth were crying helplessly on seeing their crops and granaries, houses, and folds burning. When they saw the king coming with his army, they burst into tears. The king could not see their affliction and helpless mortification. Tears ran down from his eyes too. But this was not a time for shedding tears. He applied himself heart and soul along with his soldiers in extinguishing the fire with so much all-consuming efforts that he altogether forgot about the Mahayagya. There, the neighboring kings, being disappointed, began to return, and the saints and sages also went back empty-handed. The auspicious period for the Mahayagya thus passed away. The king returned to the capital after a week. He had the self-satisfaction of having done his duty. Nevertheless, his heart was trembling with some unknown apprehension. At last it happened, as destiny had ordained. Brahma, the Lord Controller of all Yagyas, laid a curse on King Karna Keertiya that after he had consumed away the credit of all his virtuous actions in the heaven, he would have to return to earth to atone for this sin committed by him. He would attain salvation only then. It happened exactly in the same way. Maharaja Karna Keertiya, under the instructions and guidance of Gurudev Mahayogeshwaranandaji, anointed his son Gandharva and crowned him as King Bhojkar and then renounced the world for sannyas and in due course went to heaven. He enjoyed the congenial atmosphere of the heaven for a long time. When the credit of his good actions was eventually exhausted, Dharmraj, controller of heavens, warned him, "Your sojourn in the heaven is now over. You will now return to the earth." The king perplexed, but he had to return to the earth, according to the orders of Dharmraj. On coming to the earth, he began to ask the sages, saints, and seers, "O holy men, do you recognize me?" All replied in the negative, "No, we do not know you. Who are you?" Raja Karna Keertiya was very sad and began to repent that in spite of all his virtuous actions, no one remembered him. At last a saint told him that right ahead was the ashram, holy place of Maharishi Kakbhushan. Go there. Probably he will be able to satisfy you and solve your dilemma, they advised. The king made his way to the ashram of the Maharishi Kakbhushan and presented his pranam salutation by falling prostrate at his feet. Then he asked him, "O great Rishi, do you recognize me?" The sage replied, "Oh, yes, O king, I know you well. You are the brave and benevolent Karna Keertiya, the great king of Bhojkar. You were the protector and preserver of your kingdom, family, dharma, and tradition of your society. The world reverberated with the praises of your good actions. During your reign, in your territory, the lions and goats lived together amicably. Brahmins and saints used to carry away the cows and the articles given by you in charity to them through this very solitary forest. You were a great king of the Lodh dynasty of Kashyap Gotra, and hardly Had the sage finished his sentence, that a Viman, heavenly airplane, came from the heavens and took away Maharaja Karna Keertiya to Vaikunth, the land of immortality. The king was satisfied that his glory still remained on earth in the memories of humanity. However, he also remembered that destiny is the most powerful and everything happens as ordained by it.